Okay, so let's start this. So as you know, we are in the month of October. Today is October 8th. So October, then November, December, January. So 3 full months, 90 days plus about 22 days or 20 days you can say it are there in October. So you have about 112 days left. Now, I have written this quote from a famous author, Ryan Holiday. The path of least resistance is a terrible teacher. Now, the problem is the default is always the path of least resistance. You can see it's how nature is designed, it's how nature works. If you talk about how does the water flow, it will take the path of least resistance. Or if there is any object, it will try to go on the path of least resistance. Now there are, I mean, if it was a natural world, the path of least resistance would make a lot of sense. But in today's world, for humans especially, we are filled with distractions. You carry this small computer in your pocket all day. I mean, even I carry, I won't say. And that is a major source of distraction. A lot of you would be using that to watch our video lectures or whatever source you're using. So it is also a source of your information, but it can be a source of distraction too. So that is a problem with the path of least resistance, that it is a terrible teacher. Either you will be too late to learn those lessons that you should know now, or you won't learn them at all. So there are I want to talk about the path of least resistance even more. So if we talk about the preparation going forward from here, so what would be the path of least resistance? So path of least resistance, it could be like don't study, no effort required. That is one way. You don't have to put any effort, no resistance there. Then procrastinate, you can still say I'm gonna study. I just told you we have 112 days. You will be like I'm gonna study after October, or even the better answer would be I'm gonna study from tomorrow, because that's always there. Tomorrow is not gonna go anywhere, right? So this is another path of least resistance. Then we have, I mean, these are the two major ones. Now if you are studying, I'm sure all of you are studying. Now if you are studying, then the next would be that don't revise, just keep on studying subject after subject. That is still path of lower resistance. I won't say least resistance, because not studying is, I mean, nothing is easier than not studying. So it is still the path of lower resistance if you just don't study, don't revise anything, or if you don't practice. So for the first two, I would need to say you need to start if you haven't started. Today, I'm going to focus more about the revision strategy and the kind of things you need to keep in mind going forward from the month of October. So last session, I had talked about how you should prioritize subjects. So let me just give a quick overview. So prioritize means you gate always has a weightage. We know that, like maths, aptitude, they make 28 marks, 15 plus 13. So this is a weightage. Then subjects like soil, environment, transportation, fluid, these have a very good weightage. Like these are about 10 to 12 marks always in the exam. Transportation is also about 8 9 marks. Fluid is there about 8 marks. So these are the, I mean, when I talk about prioritization, so these are the subjects. If I'm talking about civil, these are the subjects that you need to prioritize. If you haven't studied maths, aptitude, and these few technical subjects, then prioritize them at the earliest. Don't leave them for December, don't leave them for November also. Whatever is left from these subjects, at least finish them right away. So that is the prioritization part that I had talked in the last month. I am sorry, I forgot to share the screen. Yeah, so I was talking about, I don't think I'll need to repeat the entire thing, but I started with this quote that says the path of least resistance is a terrible teacher. So if you are choosing this path of least resistance, either you will be way too late to learn the important lessons, or it you won't learn them at all. That's also possible. Like you can make some other excuse also. So I was talking about how this path of least resistance can be there when you prepare for gate or any other exam. So the first two, don't study or just keep saying that you will study tomorrow. This would be the easiest way. This is the least resistance path. So I hope that you have started your preparation at least by now. So I'm talking more about these 2 points where, I mean, the lower resistance would be at this point that you don't revise what you have studied and you don't practice. So first of all, to tell from the previous session where I had talked about prioritization. As we know, GATE works on a very standard, almost the same weightage every year for at least these few topics. Like maths aptitude, it's given that you have 28 marks from here. And I mean, it is, if just alone these subjects, even without touching the technical subjects, you are very close to qualifying in the paper. And these 28 marks often can make a huge difference in your rank, because some technical questions are always way too easy. So this will make sure you, if you haven't done these two subjects, to make sure you finish them in this month. Aptitude is not something that you would need to sit and study, I mean topic wise, topic and topic, but for this you can just take the previous year questions from any branch or every branch, I can say, of GATE, and solve those questions. Because in the GATE exam they don't ask standard kind of questions. Some of them are standard, but some, it's better that you practice by solving the questions entirely. And then the subjects that hold the higher weightage, the technical subjects, so make sure soil, environment, transport, fluid. I haven't covered the entire chart, but it's there on our website. If you just search APSED civil weightage, you should be able to find it. And based on that, make sure you have studied these prioritized subjects. Now, hoping that you have studied most of the subjects or at least some subjects, now we need to talk about the revision, how you should revise. So in case of revision, the common way like which students go for is, they you probably have notes. It can be either like already given by any coaching, or you have made it. So in the name of revision, if you just study these notes, that's the worst way to revise a subject. Now if we talk about GATE, most of the, at least 80-85% of the questions are are numerical questions, small or big numerical, but most of these questions are numerical questions. So how are you going to revise numerical questions without solving the numericals? So that is the first thing when it comes to revision, that you are supposed to be solving questions to revise instead of just reading your notes. And you also need to challenge yourself. It's not like every time in the name of revision you will try to study these notes and then solve some questions. No, directly jump on the questions. Because in the exam, like just think about the exam situation. Would you be having a chance to go through all the subjects on the morning of the exam? No, right? So the same you have to practice in when you are revising these. So when you are going for revision, start by, what you can do is quickly go through the through the formulae. Or if you have made some short notes, I mean, which you should do, because these short notes for all subjects, it you can make it on a loose sheet. These short notes will help you revise every subject in a very short time. And like if you study subject from a book or any other resource just once, it doesn't matter that much. But if you have even these short notes of, let's say, 50 page or 100 page, and if you have gone through them 50 times, 100 times, then for sure you will remember everything or 99% of the stuff that you have written in these short notes. So that is one way in which you can make a strong, like, memory. In your memory you can remember all this stuff. Short notes, it should include formulae that you will for sure, like I would say, even the simple ones, write all the formulae, because in the exam you will forget some basic formula and then you will curse yourself. So to avoid that, write all the formulae. Then there will be some assumption in every question. I mean, sometimes when you're studying, so when we are deriving a formula, let's say if we are talking about pure bending, so we know there are assumptions. As the name is suggesting, it's pure bending, so there is no shear. So such kind of assumptions you should be aware of. So that kind of short notes, you can keep these things in your short notes so that you can quickly go through. So coming back to the revision part, so before you attempt questions, you can go through your short notes, go through your formulae, and directly start solving questions, instead of taking time to, spending 2 3 days just to read the subjects and imagining that you are improving. That's not how things work. You need to be solving questions. You need to test your memory, like whatever you studied, what percentage of that are you able to capture. Now for a fact, you would have forgotten whatever subject you studied. That's how, like, it's not your fault. It's also how our brain works. So if you have just studied a subject once, then if you go to that subject a month later, 15 days later, you would have forgotten a lot from that, because that's how our brain works. The retention looks something like this. This is where you first studied it, and this is how over time the retention goes. So it is not your fault that you are forgetting the subject. This is how our brain works. So don't feel bad or don't panic that you can't remember. You need to strategize it. Like, if this graph is falling like this, and at this point, if I revise the subject again, then it becomes something like this. From here, my retention has again increased. Now, again, if it falls way too much before that, if I revise one more time here, revise here, then I can control. Now over time, what happens is this graph becomes flatter, so you will be able to remember a major chunk of whatever you have studied. So you need to have these periodic revisions. So for revision, solve questions and attempt tests. So you have a lot of, I know a lot of students have problem in attempting the test, because there is this fear that I won't be able to do well and I haven't revised the subject. And like, you imagine, I can understand, I've been there, my friends have been there, and I've been doing that for more than last 4 years. So this feeling is there that I won't remember, I will score very poorly, and that will, like, degrade my morale. But that's not what test is for. Test is to check where you stand. Like, is it, if you don't give these tests, if you keep yourself in that illusion that you have revised the subject, you have studied it 4 or 5 times, but you haven't given enough tests, you will stay in that illusion. So it's always, there is this Richard Feynman quote that you shouldn't fool yourself. I'm forgetting the exact words. And you are the easiest person to fool. Like, you can easily skip giving these tests. You can easily skip not revising. I mean, revision you can skip, but this is just fooling yourself. So you need to avoid fooling yourself. Whatever the reality is, if you are getting 5 marks, if you are getting 10 marks, be okay with that, and don't think you need to have this perfect like knowledge of the subject to give a test. You need to get over all these problems of like this perfection is there. I mean, most of us face through that, go through that in many issues. There are these perfectionist tendencies that only when I have studied the entire subject, I will give the test. Only when I have done this, only when I have solved 50 questions, I will be giving the test. No, tests are there just to check where you stand and find out, and you will feel better. Like, let's say you haven't revised a subject and you're giving a test and you're able to score 50%, then that's a good sign, right? It's not a bad sign. It's not like you only remembered 50%. It's like glass half full or half empty kind of situation. If you can do 50%, it's a great sign, like you didn't even revise it. And once you know where what are the points that you missed when you didn't give those tests, then definitely you can go back to your notes and make sure that you work on those points. But if you are not giving the test, you will never get to know what were these points. So when it comes to revision strategy, that's what I was talking. Leave, let's say, Sunday for just giving test. Each Sunday going forward from here, at least make sure you are giving test, and from tests you will be finding out what are the problems. Like, problems can be I mean, the reasons why, because of which you scored less or whatever you scored. So it problems are you missed out on some concept, you didn't remember the concept, or you didn't know the concept. There can be formula related problem, you forgot. I mean, you knew how to solve it but you forgot the formula. Or there can be problem in making silly mistakes. So all these are very potential problems which every student goes through. So instead of avoiding giving tests, figure out what kind of problems after each test, figure out what kind of problems you made. If it is a conceptual problem, go to your notes and then study this concept. Now once you go to your notes, or once you even go on the internet and search for a issue that you personally face, like you made this mistake because you were unaware of the concept, then there's a high likelihood that this concept, once you read it or understand it again, there's a high likelihood that you will be able to remember it for much longer. So that's why giving tests and figuring out your problems is so important, because the same cannot happen if you just read your notes. You don't know which part you knew better, which part you don't know at all, and which part you need improvement upon. So because of that, just reading your notes is a waste of your time. Give tests, or at least solve previous year question. I mean, I don't want to put either or condition between test and previous year question. Both are important. There should be an and statement, so focus on both. You can choose to give previous year questions first before you give test, but even in that case, don't solve each question and see the answer. At least solve 10 questions before you flip to the answer section, because in the exam again you will not be seeing the answer after each question. So each week spend some time giving this test and reflecting on the mistakes that you made. Test, just giving it for an hour and seeing the like answer or seeing the solution, that won't be sufficient. You will need to do this exercise here. And previous year questions, so previous year question, in the whenever, let's say you are studying some subject, let's say you're studying hydrology now. So on a daily basis, you can leave 1 hour. Let's say you have spent 2 to 3 hour, 3 hour on hydrology, then leave 1 hour for the revision of a previous subject that you studied a month ago. So in that 1 hour, just try to solve the previous year question. That kind of strategy is enough. So that way you can take care of your revision and tests. If you are studying a fresh subject now, if you are studying a subject now, Then make sure you have solved the previous year questions for that and given at least one test. So let's say you finish studying one subject today and you give the test today, so you will know what kind of retention you had just when you finish studying the subject. Then give a test at least one within the 2 weeks. So within the next 15 days, today is 8th. So by 20th or 23rd of October, give one more test of the same subject to see what kind of retention you are having or how much you have forgotten. You just need to know, and then you will also figure out what were the specific topics that started going that started fading in your memory, so you will know which exact topics you are supposed to be focusing on, because otherwise you won't know. So it's not like all the topics will entirely go outside of your memory. There would be some specific topics, specific concepts that you will be forgetting. So once you give this next test, even after the first test, you will get an idea what are your weak topics. So in the next revision, you can improve those topics. So that would be the way for the subjects that you're studying now. And as I told you the importance of maths and aptitude, so for aptitude you can solve, as I said, the previous year question from any branch. But for maths also, you would need to take out some weekly time that you can decide and solve questions for that. So if you haven't studied maths at all, prioritize studying maths. If you have studied maths, then give at least like let's say 4 to 6 hours every week to solve the questions from maths, so to make sure that this subject is not left without studying. So these were basically the points that I wanted to cover today. Now you can ask your doubts. I'm done like talking. Whatever doubts you have, you can ask me. Anyone, if you are facing any difficulty in your preparation or revision, any kind of problem, if you, whatever is stopping you, I would encourage you. You can ask your doubt to me right now. I'm like here for some time. Okay, Manak is saying, what about steel CPM? Let me read one by one. Yeah, steel structures and CPM. So like any other subject, I won't say that you should be leaving any subject in your preparation. That's not a great study. I mean, that's not a great strategy to leave the subject entirely, but you can prioritize. Let's say if you are talking about steel, then we know connections are extremely important. The welded connection and the bolted connection both are important, so make sure you have covered those. Plastic analysis is important, so make sure you have studied that. And in the recent times, tension compression members, it doesn't take that much time. Plus, they are little bit more interested in asking question from beam, so make sure you spend some time on that also. But if I pick my three most important topics from steel, then I would say make sure you have studied connections and plastic analysis. Similarly, for the construction material and management, last year they did ask a bit more from that topic, so I won't suggest that leave that. And CPM, like the critical path method or BERT, if you're studying, it doesn't take that much time. If you give about 3 to 5 days of time, I'm pretty sure most of you would be able to cover that topic in that much time. Then the next question is from Belina. How can I manage my time between my academic and gate preparation? So, if you are having way too much load from your academics like from your college, then before, like if you in the morning, if you're starting at 9 or 10 a.m. your college, then you will need to make sure that before you go through the day, you spend at least 2 hours. Try to wake up a bit early and spend 2 hours to study for your gate. If you feel better at studying at night, then spend little more time at night to take some time out of that to study at night. What I've seen my students, what they do is they would take out time on either of the sides. Like let's say a 2 hour session in the morning and a 2 hour session in the evening. So 4 hours is generous. I won't say it's like a lot or a lot less also, but 4 hours a day you can manage a decent level of preparation. So you can manage it like that. How many hours to study a day? That's the next question. So that's up to you. Like I am not a proponent of like who says study 14 hours or 16 hours, because I don't find it sustainable. And so I would say the number of hours that you can sustain till your gate exam, you should study. If you can, but there is always a minimum. Like if you are just studying 1 hour a day at this stage, it won't be helpful. So something like I would say 4 hours a day is minimum at this point. You can go up to 8 to 10 hours on the higher side, but that should be enough. Like if you are willingly, like with focus, with all your energy, if you are spending 4 hours a day in preparation, you would do much better instead of like forcing yourselves to study for 14 to 16 hours. Next question is from Karndeep. He's saying he's having a job, 9 to 6 job, and 3 hours. So 3 hours he has. So what should be the priority in ES? So when I talk about in case of ES, if I talk, so the topics related to water and wastewater, like the water treatment, wastewater treatment, those are your highest priority. So make sure you finish that. After that, if you say that there is air pollution, which is a good subject, like any other paper, focus on maths. Don't forget maths and aptitude. That would help you in the exam. And then comes the like theoretical topics are there, uh, so you can focus on those. But to prioritize, focus on water and wastewater treatment. Then there is hydraulics. So in that, topics like hydrology is covered and fluid is covered, so you can focus on that. Then there is a lot of theoretical stuff will get you marks, but it won't take as much time, so you can push that little further in your preparation. And also I would like to like you can just go on to our website or just search on Google the weightage for gate ES. So we have made that also. If you just search APSEd gate weightage for ES, so you will find the chart, and based on that, you will be seeing the subject that I just told you, but based on that you can make a clearer plan. Sunday, like if you have the problem of studying more or revision, so um, that's up to you. I mean, it's hard to make an this kind of statement, because based on each person's situation things can vary. But if you should study more or revise on Sunday, like I would say, if you have studied at least 50 to 60% of the syllabus, then focus more on the revision. You can break down the time, like as a thumb rule, you can break down to 60% revision and 40% time in your the studying part. How to do the revision effectively? So effective revision, it again, you need to figure out for each subject what are the topics that you have forgotten the most. For each, like the I can say effective strategy is something you will understand on yourself, but I can tell you the common mistakes. So common mistake would be to just read your notes. right? Because that won't help you. If you are just reading your notes, half of your brain would shut off, because you will be like, I just read or I just studied this subject a month ago or 15 days ago, I don't know what to read. So make sure you solve questions. Solving questions is the effective strategy for revision. Solve questions and attempt tests and figure out the weaker parts in that subject, and based on that, uh, find out like those weaker parts and cover those in by reading through your notes or through a book. English important in aptitude part. So I see English is important, I won't say, because those are kind of the free marks that you are getting in the exam. But I won't say spend hours to do that, like any other exam, or get a standard book. Just go through the words. English questions are generally easier. So again, for any aptitude preparation, the common advice is to go through the previous year questions from all the branches. You will understand what all you're supposed to do. Hmm. Next question: is it possible to crack GATE exam? Yes, it is possible to crack GATE exam. If you are talking about GE, that is geomatics engineering, the syllabus is much smaller than civil or even environmental science. You can easily finish the syllabus in 90 days. So if you are going to appear in geomatics engineering, you can start even now and make sure that you have finished the entire syllabus. So don't worry about not starting. If you start now, you can still finish the syllabus of that subject. The next question is, can I complete uh Animesh is asking if he can complete the subjects before exam with proper practice. Except, so I want to know that if you have studied other subjects or you have just studied mechanics and so, then I can answer like, are you trying to study the entire syllabus now, or is something like you have studied some subjects? Likita is saying my voice is low. Can you all hear me? Can someone confirm?
Yes, sir.
The next question from Samuel Raj: should I go in depth in topics in ES, as you don't know whether the proper will paper will be theoretical or numerical? So in depth, I don't know, like based on the questions you can understand. I don't know what, like if you go through our content, there is sufficient depth. At the same time, uh, we haven't taken a lot of time. Like I make sure to remove any extra pauses in the content or anything that is wasting your time. So whatever depth we have covered, I think is sufficient. There are some questions that came like way too like something which most students won't be able to cover. So I won't say go for that, but previous year questions will give you an overall idea, the level of depth you are supposed to cover, and our content also covers most of that in an effective manner. And the next question is from Srijan. He has three questions. So while giving topic subject test, I get under pressure, flustered easily, probably due to seeing new questions. This also leads to poor time management. How to get over this? Second question, I tend to write data given in the question while reading it for the first time. Is it the correct way? How to properly analyze tests? So seeing new questions and feeling that what like that kind of problem, if you are facing that flusteredness or pressure, it is a good thing, I would say, because that's how you would see in the exam. If like you need to be prepared for this situation. If you are seeing the question, finding the saturation of a soil percentage saturation or anything like that, that would be a bonus for you, but this is something you need to be prepared for. So seeing new questions, seeing the framing of the question that you haven't read before, this is a good practice for yourself. So even if you're like feeling pressurized, I'm sure you will feel more pressure when you're going at it on the first attempt, but if you give it more time, if you attempt more tests, you would be feeling less pressurized with that. And most of the questions come from the same, like it's not like someone is doing, we are coming up with new concepts. Most questions rely on the same concepts. So just try to feel relaxed, and I'm sure you can improve on that part. And writing the data while reading it for the first time, it's a good practice, you should do that. And one thing, like properly giving time to read the question, that is a very important aspect of avoiding mistakes, because this is a common thing. Even I have made a lot of mistakes because of that in the past, that you see a question, you are just looking at those numbers, you picked the numbers, you solved the question, and you saw they asked for one thing, you solved another thing. So that's a very common mistake. Give, if it is taking 2 minutes, 3 minutes, read the question well, because if you have read the question well, you will be solving it in less than a minute or less than 2 minutes at max. But if you are not reading it well, you won't feel confident also while solving the question, and you will make a lot more mistakes. So make a habit of, this is something you will only uh, like this is something you get practice when you attempt tests. So these kind of things are the reason why me and any other teacher would like pressurize you or tell you to give more tests, because you need to be reading the question very well before attempting it, otherwise there is a high chance of mistake. Then analyzing the test, there are 2 3 parts, like I discussed earlier also. You need to see the kind of mistakes that you have made in the test. There would be mistake, you if you skip the question entirely, so that means you didn't know that concept, or you didn't know something about that part, right? So make sure that you, after giving the test, you go through that concept, you spend some time in understanding that. Then that second kind of mistake, where you've either forgot the formula or you use the wrong formula, so that is straight away that you don't remember the formula. So make sure to make some short notes with just formula and some basic assumptions from each subject, and go through those notes before giving these tests. Third kind of, it can be some silly mistake that you knew everything but you still made that mistake. So that is the kind of mistake that I was talking about. If you read the question slowly, if you read the question well, you can save time on that. That will only come by practice. Try to keep that consciously in mind. Make a checklist of things that you are supposed to follow when you give a test. Like write down 3 4 things, that uh, an upper time limit, an upper time limit, like I'm not gonna spend more than 5 minutes on each any question. Then another point can be this, that I'm gonna spend the time that is required to read a question properly. And yeah, and writing down the data, so I'm gonna make sure that before solving the question, I write down the data. So write these 3 4 sentences for yourself, go through them before writing a test, and it will help you a lot. So that's how you can improve. And yeah, so you will be needing to use the calculator, the on-screen calculator also, so make sure you get proper practice with that. Okay, so Animesh saying that he's studying geotech and transportation. So there is, you can still finish the topics there. You would need to definitely rush a bit. I won't say you can't finish at this point, but you need to make sure that you study a subject, solve previous year questions, and attempt a test or two before you move on from that subject. So that's how you can make sure, and don't spend more than 10 days on any subject because you don't have that kind of time. So generally I keep January out. Like when I talk about gate preparation strategy, January I'm thinking that all of you should be spending in revision and in attempting tests. So you like based on that, if I say you have about 82 days, so if you are left with 8 topics, or let's say 9 10 topics also are there, then you can finish them by Jan 10th or Jan 15th by allocating at max 10 days. So fix that upper limit. Lower limit you can decide based on how much you know the subject. So like that you can finish these topics. For G, you can find some more questions. You can, there are questions from NPTEL. So if you just look on the internet, plus it, I won't say you like, you need to solve a lot of questions. Instead of that, go for variety. If the question is testing, if the like both the questions are asking for the same error calculation, then that kind of thing is not needed. You can go for a book like what is that standard surveying book, Duggal, SK Duggal. So there are questions, there are a lot of topics that are covered in those books. So they have both theoretical conventional type of questions. So if you need more questions for geomatics, you can go through that. When should we revise short notes and mistakes notes if we do tests as revision? So short notes, revision, like short notes, if it is something that you can go within 1 hour, then you can do that before test. I'm not saying you can't, but anything that's gonna take you a day of revision is not revision. That won't be beneficial for that much time. So revising short notes you can quickly do before giving a test. And in general, like weekly go through your short notes once. That would be my advice. Like once a week, go through your short notes. Yes. Next question, solving PYQs while preparing for the subjects that are left or not studied before is taking a lot of time. How to minimize the time? So subjects that you have not studied, so that is taking time. I I don't know if there is a way to minimize that time, because it is just showing that you don't remember the subject. But aim for like a number of questions. You may not be able to like minimize the time, but aim for like I'm gonna solve 10 questions. Or you can minimize the time in a way, let's say you are you are stuck at just one question. So for each question define an upper limit. Like I'm gonna study this question, I'm gonna attempt it well, I'm gonna generate a wrong solution. That should be your target. So at max 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes it can take. So don't do more than that for any question. If you are taking, just move on from that for that point. So decide an upper limit. That is the basic conclusion. Based on like up to 10 to 15 minutes, decide that this is the maximum time I'm gonna give to each question because of the time constraint. And in that time I'm gonna make sure to generate a wrong solution. It don't force your, like give yourself freedom to generate that wrong solution also, because that will help you in finding the gaps in your thinking. Like if no, if you are not generating a solution and seeing the answer versus you generating a wrong solution then seeing the answer, you will find better results by like when you find the answer, when you see the solution with your wrong solution, because you will understand your your thinking, the line of thinking that you follow and the line of thinking that was needed in the question. You can find that difference. So decide an upper limit and try to generate a solution in that much time. Next question is, when we have to attempt test series while completing single subject or topic wise of multiple subjects. You topic wise test is topic wise is more of like, let's say you studied a topic today, to close of the day you solve the questions of that topic. That is the topic wise studying. So topic wise, if you are limited by time, then you can stop at previous year questions because that is the highest priority. And once you have studied the subject, then attempt the test. Then topic wise questions you can take up for revision. If you like, let's say on any in the next week when you're studying the next subject, you can take a topic from the previous subject and solve the questions for that. Next question, book suggestion for maths in geomatics. So geomatics maths also is something which is covered in surveying. So any surveying book, like again I can remember SK Duggal, PC Punmia, these books have questions, the kind of questions that are asked in maths in geomatics. So you can take up those questions from there. So these were all the questions from your side. I hope okay, when do I start a test series? You can start it now. If you have studied, you shouldn't wait any further. This is the right time to start. So every week at least attempt to, I mean, aim to give one test. So that would be helpful for you. Suggest a book for geotechnical engineering. For geotechnical, Gopal Ranjan, I personally have used. I like to even make the videos also. I've personally followed that book from the time I was in college. So if you want, you can use that book. It has very good explanation. The conceptual explanation is very well. So this is it for today. I will be making sure to do that this kind of session next month also. Yes, 2 months are sufficient for test series. Don't worry about that. You can give more tests in the month of January, but overall 2 months are enough for test series. So just leave January, most of the time in January, for your revision for the test, giving the test, and you will be good to go. So I'm closing for this session. We'll be conducting this session in next month again to give you more guidance. So any feedback would be nice, like whatever you liked about this session, whatever you want us to cover in the next session. So we will be hopefully conducting the similar session next month, first week. So what you can do is whatever you want us to cover in that session, you can mail or send a message on WhatsApp, and I'll be making sure to conduct the next session based on that. So that's it for today. Thank you for joining and all the best for your preparation.